Okay, so you've done the hard work. You've gotten past the absolute beginner stage of a new language. You can get around on a trip, you can order your coffee without a problem, and you can have those nice, simple, everyday chats. But now you might be starting to feel stuck. You've hit the plateau. And let me tell you, it's that super frustrating point where it feels like your progress has just ground to a halt. I have been there, and I know exactly how demoralizing it can be. So, today we are going to break down exactly why this happens and give you these specific, concrete tools you need to smash right through it. All right, let's get into it. Does this sound familiar? You're kind of caught in this strange no man's land. You're good enough to manage, but you feel like you're a million miles away from being truly fluent. You can probably understand most of what you hear on a podcast or in a movie, which feels great. But then when it's your turn to speak, the words just don't flow. Maybe you're trying to tell a funny story to a friend and you just can't get the timing right. Or you're in a work meeting and you know you're not sounding as smart or persuasive as you do in your native language. That feeling right there, that is the intermediate plateau. And it is a trap where so many learners get stuck, sometimes for years. So here's the absolute truth, the thing you have to understand to move forward. The learning methods that took you from zero to here, they are not going to get you to the next level. They've expired. Think about it. Memorizing huge lists of vocabulary and grinding through basic grammar exercises, that stuff was perfect for building your foundation. But now, they just won't cut it. Pushing forward with those same beginner strategies is like trying to climb Mount Everest in a pair of flip-flops. You're just going to get exhausted, you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to stay exactly where you are. It is time for a totally new toolkit. So how do we actually do it? How do we break through? Well, here's the good news. It's not about studying harder. It's about studying smarter. We need a really fundamental shift in our entire approach to learning. And this shift really boils down to two key areas that we're going to spend the rest of our time on. First, we need to change your mindset. And second, we need to change your practice. We're going to start with the way you think about your learning, your mistakes, and even the words themselves. The real question is, are you ready to completely re-engineer your approach? Okay, our first big shift is all about your mindset. When you were a beginner, your goal was basically survival, right? Just making yourself understood was a huge victory. If you said something like, I go to the store yesterday, people got the message, and that was a win. But now, at this B1 intermediate level, the entire game changes. Your new goal is no longer just survival, it's precision. It's about having the confidence to say, I went to the store yesterday, and knowing it's correct. It's about sounding more natural, more accurate, more like a native speaker. It's a huge shift from just trying to survive a conversation to really crafting it with surgical precision. Now, what's really fascinating here is how we have to update the golden rule of language learning. As a beginner, everyone tells you, make mistakes, go for it, don't be afraid. And that was amazing advice because it helped you build confidence and just start talking. But now we're going to refine that rule. Your new goal isn't just to make any mistake. It's to make precision mistakes. So what does that mean? These aren't simple errors anymore, like forgetting a word. These are the mistakes that happen when you're trying to use really complex grammar, like the subjunctive or tricky conditional tense, right in the middle of a fast-moving conversation. And why is this your new goal? Because these specific high-level mistakes show you exactly where your weak spots are. They're like a diagnostic tool telling you what you need to fix to finally reach fluency.
And this idea right here, it gets to the absolute core of how you should view your mistakes now. A precision mistake is an opportunity. It's a training moment. Think about a recent conversation you had. Did you say something like, if I would have studied harder, I would have passed the exam? That is a classic B1 precision mistake. The truly fluent version is if I had studied harder. Now here's the key. The goal isn't just to avoid that mistake. The goal is to notice it, maybe even as the words are coming out of your mouth, and correct yourself. That little act of self-correction in real time is what trains your brain to process complex grammar at the speed of an actual conversation. It's not a failure at all. It's a high-level workout for your brain.
Okay, mindset shift number 2. And this one is a total game changer. You have to stop thinking in single, isolated words and start thinking in chunks. This brings us to a super important concept called collocations. Simply put, these are just words that naturally go together. They're like little word families that are almost always found in each other's company. Like we say heavy rain, not strong rain. We make a decision, we don't do a decision. We take a break, we don't have a break. These natural pairings are the secret ingredient, the building blocks of speech that sounds fluent and authentic. So many intermediate learners sound a little off because they're just translating word for word from their native language instead of using these natural chunks. Let's look at this perfect example right here. On the left, you've got a literal word-for-word translation. Someone whose first language is German or Spanish might say strong rain because that's how it works in their language. But in English, it just sounds a bit strange to a native ear. On the right, you see the natural English collocation heavy rain. Simple enough, right? But now look at the second example. I have a strong argument. Hey, wait a minute. That one is a correct and totally natural collocation, and this is what makes it so tricky. This shows you precisely why you can't just learn the word strong by itself. You have to learn its partners. You have strong coffee, a strong opinion, a strong supporter. Your new mission when you're reading or listening is to become a detective for these word chunks, not just for single words. All right, we have officially shifted our mindset. We're embracing precision mistakes, we're hunting for collocations. Now for the really fun part. Let's talk about our practice. How do we take all of that language that you understand, your passive knowledge, and actually turn it into language that you can use spontaneously and confidently in a real conversation? That's your active knowledge. It is time to stop being a passive consumer of the language and become an active, creative producer. Let's get into the techniques. Our first active technique is an absolute game changer. It's called media shadowing. Now, let me be perfectly clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not a listening comprehension test. The goal is not to understand every word. This is a physical exercise for your mouth, your tongue, and your jaw. You find a short audio clip, maybe 30 seconds from a news report or a movie, and you play it. And as you listen, you speak along with the native speaker at the exact same time, trying to perfectly mimic their speed, their rhythm, their melody, their intonation. You're basically trying to be their shadow. Doing this for just 5 minutes a day feels weird at first, but it literally retrains your mouth muscles to create the sounds and flow of the language at native speed. It is the single best way to break those slow, hesitant speaking habits. Next up, we have to seriously upgrade our conversations. Look, chatting about the weather or what you did last weekend is fine for beginners, but it's not going to push you. To bust through this plateau, you need to intentionally seek out what I call deep talk. This just means purposefully talking about topics that are more abstract, more complex, maybe even a little controversial. I remember one of the biggest breakthroughs I ever had was when I forced myself to have a debate with a language partner about the ethics of gene editing. It was so hard, but it was also one of the most useful conversations I've ever had. Why? Because these topics force you out of your prepackaged, comfortable phrases. They demand that you use more sophisticated grammar and vocabulary to build, defend, and sustain a real argument.
This slide gives you a perfect menu for what deep talk can look like. So, find a language partner and instead of the usual, "How was your day?" pick one of these. For instance, try defending a controversial position you don't even believe in. One of you argues for a 4-day work week, the other argues against it. Or you could discuss a complex hypothetical like, if you knew you couldn't fail, what's one big thing you would try to achieve and why? See, that automatically forces you into using complex conditional tenses. These scenarios are an amazing intellectual workout for your brain, and they directly build the exact skills you need for true articulate fluency.
Now for vocabulary. It's time to officially throw out that old rule of learn 5 new words a day. Instead, I want you to adopt what I call the phrase expansion rule. Here's how it works. You pick just one advanced phrase or collocation that you find while you're reading or listening. Let's use the example here, susceptible to. Step 1, you figure out exactly what it means and you find its other partners, like susceptible to flattery or susceptible to infection. Step 2, you check its formality. Is this a casual phrase or a formal one? Susceptible to is definitely on the more formal side. And then step 4, the most important step, you immediately use it. You write a short 3-sentence paragraph with it. For example, some people are highly susceptible to advertising. It's because the messages are designed to be very persuasive. Therefore, it's important to think critically about what you see. Boom. That little drill takes the phrase from something you just recognize to something you can actually use. You now own it. Okay, so we've got our new mindset, we've got our powerful active practice techniques, but how do we put all of this together into a system that actually works and doesn't feel overwhelming? Well, the final piece of this puzzle is creating a solid structure. To really, truly break through the plateau for good, you need a consistent, integrated routine that cycles through all of these different strategies. And this is what we're going to call the immersion loop. It is your key to finally unlocking fluency.
Now this might just be the single most important takeaway from our entire discussion today. The journey from intermediate to advanced, from B1 to B2, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You cannot just cram for 8 hours on a Saturday and expect a massive breakthrough. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's all about smart, consistent daily habits. It's about integrating these small but powerful exercises into a weekly routine that you can stick with. You're creating a cycle where your reading feeds new phrases into your vocabulary, your deep talk conversations reveal your weaknesses, and your review with a tutor strengthens your foundation. Remember, it's not about being intense. It's about being consistent. So what does this system actually look like in practice? Here is your actionable weekly workout plan. Every single day, no excuses, you do your 5-minute media shadowing drill to work on your pronunciation and flow. And every day, you spend about 30 minutes reading real, authentic content, not textbooks. We're talking news articles, blogs, maybe a chapter of a novel written for native speakers. Then, once a week, you have 2 very important appointments. First, you have a session with a language tutor or a native speaker friend. Think of them as your stylist. Their job isn't to teach you basic grammar, it's to help you with nuance, tone, and correcting those tricky precision mistakes. And second, you have your weekly deep talk debate with a practice partner. This is the loop. This is the system that builds fluency. People sometimes call the jump from B1 to B2 the valley of death in language learning, but honestly, it doesn't have to be.
It absolutely doesn't. With the right mindset and the right strategies, you can turn this plateau into a launching pad for true fluency. You're not just adding new bricks to a wall anymore. You're becoming an architect, designing and building a complex, beautiful structure. So be brave. Go find those conversations that scare you a little. Be a detective. Hunt for phrases and chunks, not just single words. And most of all, be systematic. Follow your immersion loop week after week. You have all the tools you need. Your next stop is true proficiency. So the only question left is, are you ready to start building?